Hello and welcome to the latest in review for Spider-Man Far From Home, which is the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming. I know it's confusing because I think this is like the third Spider-Man 2 we've had now, and there's going to be another one when Into the Spider-Verse has a sequel. So, but yeah, I'm joined today by James. Say hello, James.
Hello.
And Dave from Scotland.
What's up, crew?
I don't know why you're now Dave from Scotland.
It sounds like we've got a caller. Someone's phoned in.
And for new
Do you want me to
listeners,
keep rubbing on the mic every time I talk so it sounds like I'm in a bad reception area?
and for,
I'm really happy to be here.
for new listeners, they're going to be really confused why you haven't got a Scottish accent.
Yeah, and then I just did an American accent as well. What's going on?
So guys, I'm assuming you've both seen Spider-Man Far From Home.
So,
Yeah, this would be a disastrous review.
I'm gonna come straight out of the gate and just ask you, like, what did you both think of it? Like, what's your general overall thoughts, James?
I really enjoyed it. I was a little bit skeptical going in just because of what the trailers had kind of sold me, and I was worried how they'd deal with Mysterio.
Okay.
But I don't know, that second half of the film for me is really strong. One of the best MCU films like that. Just that second half was fantastic. When you actually get to see Mysterio being Mysterio, it's incredible. Some of the sequences in there, as a big Spider-Man fan, seeing some of those sequences on the big screen is like moments I'll never forget. And I actually really prefer it to Homecoming, which I know some people were. And I don't know, it's something about Spider-Man 2 which seems to be great, because you obviously had the Raimi Spider-Man 2 was great. Obviously, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 was great as well.
Was it?
No, it wasn't. But no, I really enjoyed it. It handles the aftermath of Endgame as well so well. But we'll get into it more.
Dave?
This is where I always feel like I need to watch MCU films twice, because there's the first one where I'm sitting there just like, as I'm watching it, and then the second one where I can actually pay attention. But I don't know. Maybe if I built it up in my head too much, but I was very after I saw it. And this coming from obviously a guy as yourself loves Spider-Man. I've read Spider-Man so many times, but I don't know. I think it's because it was coming off the back of Endgame, and Spider-Man has always, well, it's not always, but from Homecoming on, it's been set as a very what was the word they used to describe Homecoming? It's not like a teen drama. It was a
It's like a John Hughes film.
That's the one. Yeah.
A coming of age comedy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it was supposed to be. So I think a lot of it was my anticipation got in the way. I was expecting something that it wasn't going to be. I found the film very fun, and I did enjoy it. And obviously, as you said, what happened to Mysterio as it went on, I was like, yep, that's very, very much Mysterio, very reminiscent of what actually happened in the comics as well, like one of the first times they met. And there was actually loads of little Easter eggs they put on the license plates of cars.
Yeah.
Like I think Nick Fury's license plate was like ASM, and then I missed the actual issue number after that. I'm not that quick at reading, but yeah. Like I definitely enjoyed it. It's not up there with like the Thor Dark World, but I don't know. There was something. I don't know, I felt like they handled the plot in a quite kind of a jokey way, almost like they didn't take it seriously a little bit. Like it was a joke after Endgame, kind of. That's sort of how I felt, but I feel like I need to see it again. I don't know if maybe I was just tired when I saw it the first time, but
maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle of both of you. I think, James, I definitely agree with what you say about sort of halfway through, because that was my biggest take from this, that I've never experienced such a stark contrast between the first half of a film and the second half, because the first half of this film I was really like, so to speak, looking at my watch, waiting for it to be over, thinking, oh no, this is terrible. And just full disclosure, everyone, this is going to be a full spoiler review. That'll probably be in the title or something. But as soon as Mysterio is in that bar and he kind of reveals the illusions and reveals his plot, and I mean, it's not the best exposition where he's just sitting there like introducing everyone and who they are and why Tony Stark annoyed them and what they're like. It was kind of a bit cliche, but from that point onwards,
I think it works.
From that point onwards, I really, really enjoyed everything I saw. But that first half is really rough, and that is going to reflect in my overall score. And like you say, Dave, I think they could have handled a lot of the fallout from Endgame better. Like the opening montage, I kind of laughed at first, and then was kind of like, oh, is this how they're like treating that? And I feel like they kind of glossed over the blip stuff a little bit, like it was just, that time when all of our friends and loved ones just got blipped out of existence for 5 years. That was crazy, right? There weren't enough repercussions from that, and I think in Endgame it was like this very serious, thing where there was these support groups and people were like struggling to move on and move forward. And in this, like these high school kids who you think would probably be dealing with it way worse than that because they're not fully developed yet. They were all just kind of like, oh yeah, that was crazy, right? Let's lie about our IDs and so and so and so and so. And I just felt like, oh, okay, that's a different take on it. And I wasn't as crazy about it as I think they might have hoped.
I think this is one of the casualties of the MCU because there's so many different tonal shifts depending on what film you're watching. And to go into a light-hearted teen drama after Endgame, I think was a mistake.
I
they
think
should have had like an Avengers or a Captain Marvel or a Black Panther next, something that dealt with the world, and then do the Spider-Man.
That's the thing, because there's definitely a way you can do it that you have all these different tones and you have all these different kinds of films, because that's what's exciting, that's what's interesting, having like a crazy magic so and so and then some sci-fi epic and then a teen comedy and then a heist movie or whatever. But it's like you say, Dave, it's about choosing which ones come out and when, and I think they just got it a little bit wrong this time. But let's talk some positives, because I want to first talk about the visual effects, and this is the first time since you can talk about some of the Thanos stuff, but this is the first time since Doctor Strange when I come out thinking like, oh, some of the visuals in this were amazing. And I think the sequence I'm thinking of in particular, I don't know if it's what you were referring to, James, but at the sort of horrifying illusion, like
the nightmare sequence,
which felt like something out of an Arkham Knight, Scarecrow like scene. That was just inventive and fun and scary and
very reminiscent of the comics as well.
Yeah,
some of the scenes you couldn't actually create in a realistic world. Like, sometimes where the artist will just have like a red background or something, and then Spider-Man getting attacked by a spider or something like that. Yeah. You couldn't realistically create that, but in a Mysterio fake world, you could. And I was watching that thinking, oh, like that would look like being ripped straight from a panel.
Everything about Mysterio visually looked so much off the page. It was very much to his comic liking. I really, really was impressed with that. Go on, James. Sorry, I cut you off.
The main shot that I think will always stick with me is when Spider-Man goes into that snow globe. You see the city forming around him, and then it pans out, and it's Mysterio's fishbowl head.
That's a cover right there.
That was incredible.
That's cover art to a comic.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking when I watched it. I was like, that. I could just imagine it being like the Amazing Spider-Man 239, like above it or something. That's exactly what that was. But yeah, stuff like that was absolutely beautiful. But what I will say, like, is going to go on to a positive. But I will say I do agree with you. You both said about the middle, and it gets to the second part, and you're just like, oh, okay. Like there was that bit where they're fighting the big lava monster. I forget his name. And I actually sort of checked myself for a second. One of those moments where it's the worst thing that can happen in a film, where you realise you're in a cinema. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, hang on, are we at the end already?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, and I thought to myself, nah, we can't be at the end. And then I suddenly remembered, oh yeah, Mysterio isn't the good guy. we've still got a ways to go yet. And like, obviously, when he shot the web at the carousel or the big wheel, thank you, that one. And he was like, what's that? I suddenly thought to myself, and here we go. Like, here comes Mysterio out of his shell a little bit. But I like that. I think, as you said, though, the one thing that let it down was the way they went about discussing how his crew came around him. Like, it was literally almost like something from Ocean's 11. Yeah, like, you're gonna go around the back of the door, and it shows him like swiping the card off the guide. Like, this is why we're all here. Like, it kind of felt like when they at the end of a theatre production, they go, "Come on down," and all the cast come out.
I think the problem was actually not just that they did it, but they sort of didn't go in as much as they could have. So I'm not the biggest fan of the film, but I imagine if they did that same scene but in Ant-Man and they like over stylized it would have worked. Or whether they did it more subtly and more realistically, that would have worked. But where they sort of wound up in this sort of limbo between like going all in and like being a bit tongue in cheek about it, and then just sort of it just came across as like bad writing to me. But I have to say, Jake Gyllenhaal was incredible in this. I know it's like, headline surprise of the century. Jake Gyllenhaal was good in the film, but like he was really, really great in it, and you could tell like he was very familiar with Quentin Beck, but he brought his own version to it as well. And I quite liked the way they tied it to Tony and to the whole bath thing from Civil War. I thought that was all like a really clever, inventive way to do it, and I'm really impressed with Mysterio. For me, it didn't fall into the bad villain trap that the MCU films often find themselves in. What did you guys think of him?
Well, no, you go, Dave.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I think as much as like some of the gripes we had with the first act is they did that good job of setting him up as this really decent good guy, and they didn't do what a lot of films do, and they give away too much in the trailer. In the trailer, they set up the first act, and they were like, "This is the film." So, like, even though comic book fans know, it's Mysterio, he uses illusion tech or whatever. If you didn't know that, you would go in thinking, "Oh, he's a decent guy. He's a hero. Like, this is a really cool character." And I think he sold that really well. And as you say, even though the exposition of it was a little left something to be desired, when Peter leaves the bar, and then he just sort of giggles and goes, like, he sits there for a while as if to say, like, is he coming back? And he was just like, how easy was that? Like, that twist and that grin he gets on his face, it was not something we had seen in his character yet. So it's that moment, the switch. Some people go for like the more subtle approach when they do that switch, just like a little twinge in their eye, but he just completely went over the top, which I think was needed for his character, because as he said, like Stark fired him because he was unhinged. And like you needed to see that, like him dropping his vow, his mask, his fishbowl head, and actually showing like the person underneath, which was this unhinged maniac. Like,
I agree.
Yeah, I really like this like modern version, like tying it in to not only tying it into the MCU by having like some of his guys having like worked for Iron Man, or like the guy who got shouted at by Obadiah Stane in the first Iron Man, which I kind of thought was cool, like tying it all together. And obviously with the bar stuff from Civil War, I love that scene when you first like see the projections, actually like making the projections, and you see him come out in like a motion capture suit.
Yeah.
I thought, that's actually a really cool way of doing that.
And it was a nice way to tie into the whole like visual effects, like special effects thing from the comics. It was like a nice way to incorporate that.
Yeah, I don't know, when he does that turn, it becomes so much of, like you said, it tonally becomes a different film, and because of what they set up, I don't know whether that first half was meant to be the way it was, as in like you're kind of thinking, oh, I've kind of had enough of this, and it's not really going anywhere. I think that's all kind of set up for this big turn that you want and you kind of get, and it makes the rest of the second half of the film better.
Yeah. So let's talk about the big ending, the big twist.
Sorry,
go on.
I was just going to say, actually, just before we get onto that, because I don't see it circling back to this point. I will say something again. I think I need to see it again. I think Mysterio could have been done without the rest of his team.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe just that one other guy.
Just the one guy,
yeah, I
agree.
Yeah,
I completely agree with that.
It could have been the two of them, but I think that's where they took some humour bits too far. Like, and we've got a speech guy, and we've got a props lady, and it was just like a bit okay. Like, really, all these people. Yeah, all these people are happy to murder hundreds of thousands of people. Really, are they? Like, it just that I felt was a bit off. But I think they could have just had Mysterio on his own. Like, that's something they could have plausibly made it seem like, and then they would have made the need for Edith more important, because then he can control all of those bots and do his illusions better. Like, but there you go.
So
just thought I'd put that out there.
No, I completely agree. That's a very good point. But moving on to the post-credit scenes, we've got two very good post-credit scenes. Considering we didn't get any in Endgame. Usually they sort of go for the funny one, and then they go for the the one that's pushing the narrative. But this one we kind of got two pushing the narrative, which was quite interesting, and they were both quite funny. But let's just talk about the biggest reveal of all. J.K. Simmons is J. Jonah Jameson, guys. All of our dreams came true, right? Like, did anyone not want that?
No, I actually sat down. I was like sort of leaning forwards as I always do when it gets to the post-credit scenes, and I sort of sat back in my chair and just leant on my arm and smiled. I was like, "Yay!"
I was so happy.
Good.
Like, I would have been happy if the post-credit scene was just him. Like that was just that was the one time in the cinema where everyone kind of cheered all together.
Yeah.
But then to get the rest of that post-credit scenes where
Wow.
you find out that Mysterio has leaked and revealed Peter Parker's identity, he is Spider-Man, to the world. I think it's really interesting.
I don't like it.
I don't know how to feel about it yet. I liked it because it's something we haven't seen on film yet.
Well, I like
But
that
I
Spider-Man.
feel like it's too early.
I like that Spider-Man was the only character to have a secret identity, because secret identities are such a big thing in the comics. I mean, you ask anyone about, superheroes, secret identity is such a huge part of it. And I feel like the MCU's been missing that, and I liked that they sort of played on it in this one with him, not wanting to reveal himself to his friends, the whole MJ thing, and, being conscious of which outfit he's wearing and which continent, etc., etc. Yeah. And I thought, I was like, right, I'm glad they're really playing into this, because I think it's a really important part, not just of superheroes, but especially of Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And I think to kind of take that away, and in a post-credit scene as well, I thought did a little bit of a disservice to the character and to the whole scenario. What did you think, Dave?
I hope and I pray when everyone says that the MCU, they have this big plan, and I know they don't necessarily for a lot of things, but as time has gone on, they do plan more in advance. I hope and I pray they have a big plan for this reveal of his identity, because, as you said, Spider-Man's one of the characters that most guards his secret identity. Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, whatever. It doesn't matter. They don't need secret identities. Like, the whole MCU's been built on characters without them. Spider-Man is a big part of his character, and they've already revealed his identity in the comics before, and it birthed what was widely known among Spider-Man fans as one of the worst storylines ever, where they had to retcon it with the Brand New Day storyline.
Yeah.
So I saw that, and my initial thought was, have they not learned their lesson? Like, they're going for a big shock and they're going for a big reveal, and I get that, but did they have to reveal his identity? I have to think they already know what they're doing for Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
They already have a plan, and it's probably going to involve the Sinister Six in some way or another. I mean, let's face it, amongst his friends, MJ, Ned, and Aunt May all know his identity. So it's like they've checked off all his friends and family so this big reveal, like, you see what I mean? Like, they've like, oh, look, May's found out. Oh, look, MJ's found out. Okay, now we can reveal it to everyone else.
Yeah.
Like, if you see what I mean, like, they've done all the other story plot points they can. I really, really hope this isn't something they've just thrown out there to be like, oh my God, and they actually have a plan for it. Because if not, there's a chance to really ruin the character, to be honest. I think that end scene, unless, as you say, unless they actually have a plan for where this is going to go with his identity, I think that end scene could have just been Jameson showing the video of Mysterio framing Spider-Man.
That would have been perfect. Yeah,
that would have been it. And then it would have been like the Spider-Man we know, where everyone hates him and thinks he's a menace.
Yeah.
And then that would have been like, oh, okay, I see where they're going with this, and Jameson, of course, is the forefront for it. But I just really hope they've got a plan.
It makes me wonder if they're going to plan on bringing Miles in earlier than we thought.
Yeah.
It might be... Like an end of the next Spider-Man film could be the introduction of Miles Morales and handing over to Miles.
Potentially. Does anyone know how big a deal Holland's got with Marvel Studios? How many films he's done?
I don't know. I think his contract was actually originally up after Endgame, but he's obviously had extensions because obviously Far From Home.
He's had 5 years now, right? 4 years?
Yeah.
I think this is his fifth film.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
fifth.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the other post-credit sequence, because although that one was closely related to the film, the other one was closely related to the universe at large. So obviously it revealed that the reason Fury was maybe off his game for most of the film, well, all of the film really, was because he wasn't Fury. Fury was sunning it up away on a spaceship. So what do you guys think of that? Secret invasion?
They there's a comment during the film that I noticed that Maria Hill makes to
as they're walking
Fury
to the car
about the sleeper cells of Skrull, and I thought, they're setting it up, and then that reveal, I was like, whoa,
much less subtle.
this is huge. And then and then it cuts to Nick Fury, and like it's all actually part of the plan. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But it's obviously kind of setting up Sword, I guess.
Yeah.
That was my main takeaway
Yeah.
from that, is that they're trying to set up Sword. Did they mention at one point that they were looking? Did you say looking for sleeper cells, scroll sleeper cells? Did they say?
it was as Fury and Hill, but you know, in their human form, disguised. It was just a throwaway
just before
comment.
they go to London.
Yeah.
Oh, I must have missed that.
I think is it in Berlin?
Oh yeah.
So it looks like that's where the next phase is sort of going to be. That looks like, is that going to be the big
that cosmic? So we heard for a while ago that the next phase was going to be very cosmic. Obviously, there were the rumors that James Gunn was going to like lead that, and then obviously everything happened with him. So I don't know where that still stands, but it obviously looks like Marvel is still going forward with those cosmic plans, whether James Gunn's going to be less involved or not. But it's exciting to see. It obviously means, like, I think a Nova film is way more likely.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get that Silver Surfer film.
Oh, I'm hoping. You know, I'm hoping.
I know it pretty sounds like I've been really negative for this film. Like normally I'm the positive one when it comes to the Marvel
it's
sort of
true.
stuff. But like I did really enjoy this film. But that post-credit scene with Talos was my least favorite bit of the whole film.
Oh, okay.
Like not the Nick Fury being in space. That bit I was like, oh, cool. They're setting up Sword. You know, maybe he's going to be in a Captain Marvel sequel. So they're already setting up why he's suddenly in space again. Like it would be weird if he was back on Earth in Avengers and then he just like, oh, I've just come back from being dusted. Let's head off to space. Like it would seem a bit weird. So they're setting that up. They're like laying the groundwork. But the fact that the whole film, it was Talos. Like that, I get like because at the end they said I was just supposed to give the glasses to the kid and that was it, and then the rest of that was them going a bit rogue. Like they weren't supposed to then intervene and join up with Mysterio and blah 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 blah. So I get that, but part of me was thinking like, no, like I know it's a film, but like why would Nick Fury do that? That flies against everything his character has been throughout the whole thing. Oh no, it hasn't. I suppose he faked his death in a Winter Soldier and stuff like that as well. But I don't know. I thought that was one of those moments where like the comedy, I felt took away from the actual story.
Yeah.
Because he was acting like Fury the whole time, and I know that's the point of a scroll, but I don't know. Like just I saw that and I was just like, really? Like
I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think that's what you say about that's what a scroll does is like right for almost any other character, but for Fury in particular, who like as someone even says in the film is like the most paranoid and most dangerous man on earth, like I think that would be a lot harder to pull off those nuances of Fury, and the fact that people like Happy didn't know, I think is very interesting and a bit problematic, like you say. Well, so what did you guys think of Happy in this? Because I thought this is the most I've ever liked him in a film.
Yeah,
and I've always really liked him, but that just says how much I really enjoyed him in this.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, go on. Oh no, after you.
One of my favorite scenes in the film was that scene where he picks up Peter from Holland, and you get that moment in the jet, and he's giving him that pep talk, and like explaining why Tony thinks Tony did what he did.
Yeah.
And then when Peter's back up, and then you see Peter go and make his new suit, and that look on Happy's face, and then you get AC/DC as well.
Yeah,
that was such a great moment.
It was Led Zeppelin, James.
that
great
was
line.
a good joke as well.
It was. I don't know. I really like what they did with it. I don't know if I want to see more of him, like going forward, because obviously there's that whole bit with Aunt May.
That was so funny when they were explaining their relationship.
I'm kind of like, I don't know anymore. But I don't know. I really like Happy in this film, and it's such a nice way to have Jon Favreau, who obviously started this whole thing with Kevin Feige. It's such a nice way to keep him involved, even though he's the busiest man in the world.
Yeah, I agree. Dave, what do you think?
Definitely. I loved him in this film as well, and I think that it, as we said, like it sort of felt a bit too comedic, and we needed like one more serious film before the nice comic relief of Spider-Man. I felt Happy was a welcome inclusion into this film because it did address some of the questions of Iron Man's just died. And even though a lot of things happened in Endgame, let's face it, the majority of people who aren't comic book fans Iron Man is the be-all, end-all of the whole MCU. So that's the biggest thing to take away from this. So I think Happy was that great connection. And then Spider-Man obviously dealing with the ramifications of that. And as you said, that scene in the jet, I completely forgot about that until you mentioned it. It was perfect. Where you see him when he designs the web shooters and then picks it up just like Iron Man did. I think it's in the first one, is it?
Yeah.
Where like he's first designing his suit, and you see that look of, oh yeah, look, like he's not going to be the next Tony Stark, but you can see
he's the first Peter Parker.
See what Tony saw in him.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean, like, and it was kind of like, I'm not a father-son moment, because I mean. There's been so many of them all over the shop, but
it was quite paternal though. I think so.
Yeah, it definitely was. Almost like if you should say the on-off relationship with Aunt May, almost like a stepfather role.
Yeah,
like an uncle or.
Don't say that.
It always goes well for Peter Parker.
But, yeah, no, I like that. I think I like. Obviously, I don't want it to be every single Spider-Man film's Happy's there all the time, but I think he should still have a role.
Yeah.
Like if anything, like just like guidance or something, you know.
I think the one last thing I want to touch on before we close out this review is the supporting cast. So obviously I think we're all agreeing that maybe the comedy, even though it worked in a lot of places, I think it maybe shouldn't have just been. This film shouldn't have been the next one, but the comedy itself, worked for the most part. And I think one of the funniest recurring jokes for me was like the Ned and Betty stuff. All those jokes really worked for me. I thought that was hilarious. What did you guys think?
I think that's the perfect example of how humor can be done on the back of a serious film. I know this wasn't an overall, it was serious in places, but it wasn't an incredibly serious like Endgame level film. But that is the perfect example of a joke that whether they don't take it too far. It was just nice little bits that were funny, and the moments with Ned and Betty got the biggest laughs in the cinema.
Yeah, for me too.
Especially that last moment when they go off at the airport and we broke up.
Even though they're wearing matching t-shirts.
Yeah, because it wasn't thrown down your throat, and it wasn't taken away from the main story, but it was just a little bit of funny every now and then, which is exactly what you need. Just a little bit of lightheartedness, where it's not. Okay, like give it a rest now. I'm trying to watch a film, where they sometimes just try and push a joke too hard. I think they did it just so well with Ned and Betty, and I think them two as actors pulled it off perfectly as well. Like they stayed as their characters, but they're all lovey-dovey and stuff. They didn't completely swap their character.
Final thoughts, James?
I really like Ned. Was one of the standout parts for me in Homecoming. I thought he was like great in that film, so I was actually really looking forward to seeing what they did with him. I was a little bit annoyed that he didn't have a bigger role, and I think it would have been nice to have seen that, but I get why they did. He wasn't necessarily needed as much as he was in Homecoming. But I want to talk a little bit about MJ and what they did with this Mary Jane Watson, not Mary Jane Watson. I thought Zendaya was really good, and I think it's such an interesting direction to take the character in. I think we'll see. I don't know what the future of that story is going to be, especially with the post-credit scene. I don't know. What did you guys think of Mary Jane?
I really liked it, actually. I really like the sort of slightly different take on it. I think their sort of awkward relationship is the most true, at least to my experiences, like high school relationship kind of thing. I think it felt really natural in the same way obviously Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone's relationship felt natural because they were dating in real life. I think this one just felt so kind of real and so organic. And I think they play her intelligence, but her her kind of age and lack of experience at the same time. I think they play that really well. And I just really want to see these characters like age over the next like 5-10 years if we can get them all in contracts for that long. Dave, what did you think?
I think Tom
MJ?
Holland said that he'd like happily play Spider-Man until he couldn't walk anymore. So maybe we'll get that.
Well, that's my hope too. And if they do go for like the Miles angle, I just hope they don't kill off Peter Parker in the process. But no, I actually like the character of MJ, and I like Zendaya playing it too. It's actually kind of reminiscent of if you type in like Ultimate Spider-Man and look for MJ from the Ultimate Universe, very similar. She's very much trying to expose the truth, quite gothic in some ways. I know they haven't gone that route with MJ in this, but there are similarities between those sorts of characters, which makes sense because they're going quite ultimate route in a lot of things they do with Spider-Man. But no, I like the MJ character, and I hope they don't, now they're together, now just get rid of her in the second film or the third film or whatever. I hope they actually keep it going, because the MJ Peter relationship went on for a hell of a long time. And again, in that Brand New Day storyline, it was one of the things that angered people the most, is that they got rid of that. We don't want him to see him constantly break up, get together with someone. We want to see him, do all that and then get with them, marry them, kids, all while trying to be Spider-Man. Like, we want to see the progression. Or at least I do, at least. One other supporting character that I don't think really needs too much to talk about it, but it was just one moment I really wanted to mention before we wrap this up, was Flash. Right at the very end, I feel like they're trying to roll like a Flash Thompson, Harry Osborn character into one.
Yes, the driver, his mum not being there. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and he had like this rich butler or chauffeur picking him up, and he's like, "Oh, mother can't attend today," and he's like, "No." I feel like they're trying to go for that. Like, he overcompensates because he's getting no love at home, so he takes it out on people like Peter Parker, who's got a loving aunt and friends, and MJ and Ned, and so he lashes out. And I feel like maybe down the line, I kind of hope they're going to build up the Peter Parker Flash relationship, maybe especially now that he knows he's Spider-Man.
Yeah, that I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see the fallout of that.
Because Flash Thompson and Peter Parker in their adult lives actually eventually become friends. So I'd love to see that sort of relationship, like they kind of had with like Ned is he's a mix-up of Gank who's one of Miles Morales' friends. He looks just like him, yet he's got another character's name, but yet he's kind of like Peter's Harry Osborn. So like they've mixed a lot of characters together, and I think they should keep that going with Flash as well.
Just to finish up, I'm gonna say that I give this film probably going to go 3.5 out of 5. I think while I really did enjoy the second part of the film, I think the fact that I had so many problems with the first part, and the fact that half the film wasn't great for me, it scores it down a little bit. But I think 3.5 out of 5 is still a pretty good score. Dave, what you got?
Tommy, we are living in an alternate reality. Me and you have agreed through pretty much this entire thing. I was going to give it a 3.5 as well.
There you go.
And that's for a Spider-Man film. I never thought I'd say that.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. But
you and I have done many sort of reviews of different things over the years together, and that's the first time we've ever agreed wholeheartedly. And it's over Spider-Man as well, of all things.
Yeah, it's over Spider-Man. Me not hyping it up. What's that about?
What has happened?
What's Scotland done to me?
James, go on. What you got? What's your score?
I'm gonna go 4 out of 5.
Okay.
The Mysterio stuff really worked for me. That second half was like I said at the beginning, like some of my favorite stuff that I've seen in MCU. Such a big Spider-Man fan. I did a little bit of a ranking as well for the Spider-Man movies, all the Spider-Man film we got, and I'd put it. So I'd put Spider-Verse 1. I think I'd put this, and then I'd put Raimi 2.
Wow, that's crazy high.
But that's just like off the initial. That might go down after I've calmed down a bit.
Fair enough. I've got to tell you guys a story before we close out the episode. I had to tell someone off in the cinema before this, for talking.
Really?
Yeah, I never normally do that. I've done it.
Always wanted to.
Yeah, I had that in Midsummer today.
They were talking next to me, right in my ear, and I thought, right, I'm gonna give him a little bit because the film might be just settling in. And then I was still doing it about 5 minutes in, and then I just sort of saw red. I didn't realise I was doing it until I'd sort of done it, really. But I turned around and I was like, "Are you going to talk through this whole film?" And the guy turned around. He looked at me and went, "What?" He's like, "What did you say?" And I just went, "I'm watching a film. There's a film on right here." I made no sense. I was just so angry. I was like, "There's a film on right here, and I'm trying to watch it." And he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I turned around and I huff, and I was like, it was only when I was back watching the film, I was like, "Oh my god, I just did that." I was just totally so angry at it. But yeah, it's my little
you just know in the car ride home they were awkwardly mocking you.
Well, the thing is,
when someone gets scared by something and then they take the piss once they're safe.
Once they're away from it all. Well, no, the thing is, I don't think the girlfriend heard me because she a couple of times after that would start speaking to him and he was like, no, don't. because I like spoke to him, so he was like shutting her down. I might have broke up their relationship. She might be like, you just don't communicate with me anymore.
I really want there to be a flashback now, and they're like 12.
They're on their first date.
Yeah.
No,
you snatch their popcorn.
No. No, they were like adults, older than me, who should know better.
Oh, okay, that's even better. See, I wish I had the guts to do that. There was a girl next to me who kept getting out her phone and texting. You know how bright phone is cinema.
Yeah, it's so distracting when you get that big bright light in the corner of your eye. It's all you can see.
Yeah, exactly. All I could hear in my head was the word yeet. And just move the phone down the front of the cinema. That's all I wanted to do.
Honestly, for anyone listening, simple cinema etiquette. It's really not difficult. Just keep your phone in your pocket. Make sure it's on. It doesn't have to be off. Honestly, it can be on silent. All right, it can be on silent as long as your vibrate's not too loud.
I had someone answer a phone call in the beginning of Midsummer today.
What?
And like, it's quite an artsy film, so like you can know that like the director's deliberately made it silent for a reason. And like he just answered his phone, and everyone was being pretty British about it and just being like, "God, shh," like tying. And then my friend Miles turned around and went, "Shut the f up," like, and just to try and get people to laugh. But he did in the end. But
honestly, just keep your phone in your pocket and don't speak. You can speak afterwards. Yeah. Like
it's an hour and a half of your life. Like if you don't like the film, just grow up here.
It's when you get people as well when it's like, oh, like, who's that? And it's like, if you watched, we're all watching the same film at the same time, it's just come out. Like, if you wait 10 minutes, they'll probably tell you who that is. Honestly. Kills me.
I'm glad we're in agreement on this.
Anyway, so at the end of this review, the
slash
biggest
rant.
the slash rant, the biggest takeaway from that is that Dave and I agree wholeheartedly about this one, which is new for us. Which I love it. I love it.
I'm scared, Tommy.
Embrace it, Dave. So thanks very much for listening, guys. Dave, who are you? Why are you so special? And where can people find you online? Dave from Scotland.
They know who I am by now. No. Yeah, Captain Dave, or the Captain of Dave. Don't forget the Captain of Dave on YouTube. I'm still plugging away playing Spider-Man. We're getting
Spider-Man?
Yeah, I know. Oh my God! Like,
what a tie-in!
Yeah, wow! I didn't see that coming. But yeah, no, still plugging away on the Spider-Man every other day. We're coming up to the end. We're coming up to the big climactic finish. The Sinister Six have just reared their ugly heads. So yeah, things are getting good. And then we've got some DLC after that. Other than that, I've actually been slacking. So...
Oh, Dave.
But yeah, go over to the Captain of Dave on YouTube if you want to check out that and hear some more of my voice.
Excellent, we'll do. James, before I get the calendar up, do you remember what we've got coming out this week?
In Dispute?
In Dispute, yes, and this is a great episode. So this week's In Dispute is one where we look.
It's a controversial one.
It's a controversial one where I think I dispute like everything. Spoiler alert! I think I'll go pretty crazy on this one, and I went a little bit all out. It's a while ago since we recorded it, but if it's the one I'm thinking of, then yeah, I lost my head a little bit.
We also had a Spider-Verse sequel in development out during the week.
Yeah, that came out on Wednesday.
Came out Wednesday, so check that out.
So yeah, check out hear what me, James, and Steve thought, or what our pitch for our sequel for Into the Spider-Verse was. And tune in next Wednesday for I'll look at the 2014 Oscars, or the 2015 Oscars for the 2014 films. And of course, as always, you've got In Case You Missed It coming out on Sunday, where we go through all of this week's trailers, headlines, movie news, and box office analysis. Thanks a lot for listening, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.